Review of different forms of happiness. Here is a summary of the various stages and kinds of happiness. A. Vedayita Sukha. Happiness as a sensation, happiness involving the enjoyment of sense objects. 1. Sense pleasure, Kama Sukha. Happiness stemming from the 5 chords of sensuality, Kama Guna. Happiness derived from the 5 chords, from the 5 forms of sense contact, Vasa. 2. Happiness of jhana, Jhana Sukha. Happiness as the fruit of jhana. Happiness associated with the 4 fine material jhanas. Happiness associated with the 4 immaterial jhanas. B. Vedayita Sukha. Happiness that is not a sensation. Happiness not involving contact with sense objects. 3. Nirodha Samapatti Sukha. Happiness connected to the attainment of cessation, i.e., dwelling in the cessation of perception and feeling. Sanya Vedayita Nirodha. This above classification of happiness accords with the 10 stages of happiness described earlier. Following is an alternative threefold classification of happiness, which is similar to the preceding one, yet is slightly more flexible or non-specific. 1. Sense pleasure, Kama Sukha. 2. Happiness of jhana, Jhana Sukha. 3. Happiness of nibbana, Nibbana Sukha. The individuals who experience these 3 kinds of happiness are as follows. 1. Sense pleasure is enjoyed by unawakened human beings and by awakened beings belonging to the stage of stream enterers and once returners. 2. Happiness of jhana is accessed by unawakened human beings, by awakened beings of every stage, from stream enterers up to arahants, especially those who have previously developed that specific level of jhana. 3. Happiness of nibbana is accessed by awakened beings of every stage, from stream enterers up to arahants. If one is referring to happiness of fruition attainment, however, then this is accessible to those individuals who have reached that specific stage of awakening. And if one is referring to the happiness of the attainment of cessation, then this is accessible only to non-returners and arahants who have previously reached the 8 concentrative attainments. A classification according to different types of individuals appears in this way. 1. Unawakened human beings enjoy sense pleasure and may experience the happiness of jhana. 2. Awakened beings at the stage of stream entry and once returning experience sense pleasure, the happiness of jhana, and the happiness of nibbana in the form of happiness of fruition attainment. 3. Awakened beings at the stage of non-returning and arahantship experience the happiness of jhana and the happiness of nibbana, both in the form of happiness of fruition attainment and, if they have reached the 8 concentrated attainments, in the form of happiness of the attainment of cessation. Although Buddhism does not encourage people to act solely for the sake of obtaining happiness, it constantly acknowledges the truth that happiness is an essential aspect of human life and gives meaning to Dhamma practice. One can say that it is an anchor and support for Dhamma practice, regardless of whether one is focusing on Dhamma practice in particular or in human conduct in general. The happiness meant here is the basic happiness inherent in people's minds, which they can contact by themselves at any time that they are ready. They need not rely on contact with objects in the outside world. This happiness brings a degree of independence to one's life. The vital importance of happiness in Dhamma practice has been explained above. Note in particular that a Dhamma practitioner who has not yet experienced a deeper happiness independent of sense objects cannot yet be assured that he or she won't return to seek out sense pleasures. Even as a renunciant, if one has not yet experienced this profound non-material happiness, one is not yet safe. The mental defilements can overwhelm the mind, leading one to relinquish the holy life. Buddha encouraged unawakened people to develop this internal non-material happiness. Besides increasing one's degree of happiness and enhancing the quality of one's life, this internal happiness provides an escape from the tyranny of craving, which leads to endless agitation and heightened problems, both personal and social. It is fair to say that if human beings are not willing to take an interest in and get to know this non-material happiness, the unrestrained rush for sense pleasure will create a superficial kind of life, full of distress, anxiety, boredom, grief, and misery. Moreover, it will be accompanied by competitiveness and mutual exploitation, until people lead themselves and the entire world to utter annihilation. Given that ordinary, unawakened people who are immersed in the pursuit of sense pleasure need to experience an inner happiness, it is twice as important that those people who determine to distance themselves from or to renounce sense pleasure have access to such happiness. This is even more true for those individuals who go forth as renunciants, engage in higher spiritual practice, and who devote their lives to some ideal. If they are unable to access such internal happiness, their renunciation or devotion will fail to have a stable protection. It is likely that they will fall away from their ideal and return to an unwholesome mode of living. In short, if one lives a life of renunciation, one must be happy with renunciation. If one devotes oneself to an ideal, one must be happy about a life of devotion. In a wider context, if we are unsuccessful at helping people to recognize and appreciate this internal happiness, the craving for sense pleasure will overwhelm the human race. It will be the final factor in determining the fate of the world, regardless of the undertakings by religious leaders and moral philosophers.